In our beautiful LGBTQ plus community, we often come together when the threat comes from the outside. We also get together to hang out and have fun. But what I wondered is, do we ever really still take the time to sit down and have a conversation about things that truly matter?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to this very special Pride Project, the second edition. And of course, I have a wonderful guest here with me. Will you please tell the viewers who you are?
Yes, thank you so much for having me on such a beautiful project, and I'm so happy to contribute to it. I'm Rutger. I'm 41 years old. I live here in Rotterdam. I'm a web analyst at the moment, and I have a background in economic psychology.
And how would you label yourself in our wonderful community?
First of all, I'm gay. I identify as gay, or maybe bisexual, I don't really know. And I'm cisgendered male.
And of course, this series is called We Don't Talk About, because there's a lot of stuff in our community we don't talk about.
I agree.
And there is something you really want to talk about. What is that?
I really want to talk about conditional acceptance, because I think every queer person in their lives will deal with that at one point or another, but I actually never had a conversation about it.
Yes, I think that's mostly because it's a very complex subject.
Yes, probably. I think a lot of people experience it, but don't even know that they're experiencing it.
Especially when it's in a smaller form, of course. And then there's also the shame or not wanting to let people know that people in your surroundings are not fully accepting, or even just only mentioning it but never really get into it because you don't want to hurt people who are supposed to be your family, your friends.
Yes, and I guess there are some very clear examples where maybe we talk about it a little bit more, but it's still conditional acceptance. For one thing that pops into my head immediately is religion. You have a lot of religions that say, yes, we accept you as a person, but you cannot have sex. The condition for me to accept you, to fully accept you, is that you don't have sex.
Yes.
Which,
or a relationship.
yes, or a relationship, and which is, of course, ridiculous, and it's no acceptance at all. So, yeah.
I agree with that. But actually, years ago, someone told me that they were sorry for me, and I asked, well, why on earth would you be sorry for me? And she told me, because you will never be happy. And then I asked her why, and then she explained how her religion views other sexualities, and she explained exactly what you just mentioned.
Yeah, and it could also happen on a very basic level of human relationships, I would say. It's like, I also have heard a lot of people that say, yes, my family accepts me because I contribute financially to the family, or I prove that I am smart because I finished graduation. And this is some kind of self-inflicted or internalized version of that.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you need that? Why can't you just be? Why can't you just exist?
Yeah,
And
or even smaller than that. Like, for instance, oh, my family is acceptance because I can bring my partner home, but we're not allowed to show any form of intimacy.
yeah,
Like that. And then I don't mean, of course, nobody wants to see anyone like slobbering all over each other, whether you're gay or straight or bi or in whatever combination. Well, I mean, some people may be into it and that's fine too, but in a normal household setting, that's not what you want to look at. But it's often that you're even not allowed to sit very close to each other or hold hands or like pet someone's knee or
oh
like the
yes,
slightest thing of affection can make someone uncomfortable.
yes, and Also, I guess that's sort of like learned behavior when you're in a family setting. It's quite bizarre actually, but I still experience that as well now that I think of it. Like, I don't do that. We don't touch each other. He almost gives me a hand. He extends his hand
As a greeting.
as a greeting when there's family members around. Yes, but it's not. That's not. Maybe it might not have to do with the family here, but more like what we learn in society.
Yes.
So
that it's frowned upon, and it's like
yes,
you're not allowed to make someone else uncomfortable.
yes,
No matter what it means to you.
yeah,
No matter what it does to you, what it costs you.
yeah. I think you become aware of that when you are surrounded by people that fully accept you.
Yes.
And yes,
Yeah.
that's.
Yes.
I guess I experienced that like a few times, usually on holidays, when I would go to a place where there's people like me, where it's a full acceptance of the community, and or where you are in the majority for a change, or where it's completely normal.
Or when you're in a queer bar, or during Pride events.
Yes. Yeah.
When you're just hanging out with your close friends who are all part of the community or openly accepting. Because I think that's also a difference. There are a lot of people who don't have any issues with it, but as long as you're not sure and you have the slightest doubt in the back of your mind, you're still careful.
Yeah, yeah, and but also it's sometimes people don't really know that the acceptance is conditional. It's for example, when you're like, this family member is a construction worker. He can take care of himself because he doesn't show any queerness, in my view of things, and that's the condition under which that person is accepted. But or you could be anything, or a banker, or but they do not accept the very core of the being. They are not accepting that queer part, and especially are not proud of that person having gone through this journey and eventually coming out, or going into transition, or whatever you can think of. The essence of the being is not accepted, and I think that is the worst sort of thing, actually.
Yeah, because you have to be some kind of straight passing, or cis passing, or because if you're normal enough, then it's all fine, and then we accept the fact that you are gay or trans, or
and it, as a boy growing up and eventually realizing that I might be gay or bisexual, I really started to have some kind of fear to show feminine sides of myself, even though the male side in the white male thing in the 90s fully rejected anything female, because they thought that being a woman is degrading, and so that made me really afraid of even showing that side. And still, they're the ones who push me away from the male side. So why cannot I, even if I did it to just make a point,
I completely get what you mean. It also makes me think of a really positive quote by Iggy Pop, who went to this red carpet event in a dress, a simple dress, not an extravagant gown, just a simple, elegant dress. And people asked him, like, don't you think it's degrading, or don't you think it's weird to show up in a dress? And I was like, why would I think it's degrading to wear a dress? A dress represents femininity, and I don't think femininity is degrading. I think it's wonderful to be a woman. That's what he said. And I think that's a very interesting point, because we are so focused on having to fit in a certain mold.
Yes.
And that's what we touched on earlier. Like, if you're normal enough,
yeah. Yeah.
That's a thing that I run into a lot as a trans person, because as a trans male who does drag both in male and female presenting ways, I keep my nails long. These are actually my own nails. So in my daily life, I wear nail polish and I have glitter and stuff like that. And I don't feel like taking it off when I'm done with my drag because I like glitter. And I love having long nails. And I'm not ashamed of that. And I also feel it doesn't make me any less of a man.
It's 2024. It's nails. We're talking about fucking nails, right?
But yet I had people ask me like, why don't you cut your nails? You want to be a man, right? No.
Yeah.
I am a man. I have long painted nails.
Yeah. You know, this reminds me of a beautiful example. And I was over at a friend's house and he was all dressed up to go out. And he looked really fine. He looked so nice. And his neighbor came out. She's a woman from, I think, 50-ish, or maybe not even 50, it doesn't really matter. Just to get a sense of the generation here. And she came out and was like, wow, you look so great. You look so beautiful. As long as you don't wear handbags. And that, I was like, where did that come from? You can just give a compliment without such a ridiculous condition. But and also it makes me want to wear like a pink handbag with glitters on it just to show her.
Walk to the room first.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And I also think that people feel, because when you differ from the standard, when you're the different one, people feel that they have a right to impose that opinion on you. I mean, you don't have to like the fact that I have long nails, to use that same example. You don't have to like the fact that I use glitter, but why would you use it as a condition to question my masculinity?
Yes.
Or not even my masculinity, because what's wrong with femininity when you're a man? And that's also a thing with trans folk. When you transition, people have this really stick in the mud kind of view that you have to, when you're a trans man and when you transition from female to male, that you want to be as masculine as possible. And the other way around as well, when you transition from male to female, that you want to be as feminine as possible. But why wouldn't you be a butch trans woman? Why wouldn't you be a femme trans man? And actually, in my daily life, I am, in my movements and the way I dress, I am pretty butch. Let's be honest. But I have my mannerisms, and I have my feminine things, and I have my queerness, which I'm so happy with, because that makes me who I am.
Yes.
And what I want to be is me. And what I want to be is happy. I don't want to be anything else than that.
Beautiful.
I want to give a very, very big thanks to Gay and Drag Bar Bonaparte, who not only hosts us but sponsors this entire project. Gay and Drag Bar Bonaparte in Rotterdam is one of the oldest drag bars in the Netherlands, and definitely worth a visit for everyone. Everyone is welcome here, no matter your age, your gender, your sexuality. And as Bonaparte has proven, everyone gets along when they have a nice drink in their hands. Bonaparte is a night bar, and there are regular drag shows as well. All the info, address, opening hours, etc., their socials you can find in the description below. And once again, a very big thank you to Gay and Drag Bar Bonaparte. Now, let's get on with our conversation.
Yes, there's all sorts of things popping into my mind, like there's so much that is related to this subject. Like you also have, did you ever heard of contact hypothesis? It's like when you have certain views about a group, like the gay community, or the queer community, or whatever view of a community you have, or the trans community, or like a certain group of people. Doesn't matter who those people are. When you come into contact with them and you see like, oh wait, they're just people, this usually doesn't work, because the stereotypes in somebody's mind will remain intact, and because they start viewing the person they met or accepted or conditionally accepted, they started seeing that person like as not belonging to a community, and this is a big problem, because they will still have these big stereotypes, and also maybe even discriminate people from that community, because they do not, especially when they're conditionally accepted, because they don't accept, they're not proud of the person they say they love, they're not proud of that person being queer, and it's just,
and that's where you often get when people say, oh, but you're not like that.
yes,
It's little things like that, which well, I don't really run into that because I am very, very, very queer and obvious about it. But sometimes, like I met someone at a party recently, and we were talking about the things that we do and stuff like that. And I was wearing rainbow suspenders, but other than that, I was dressed very butch, and I had a hat on and stuff like that.
Ooh,
Sneakers. It was a fun look, but very mask. And we were talking about what do you do in daily life, and I said, well, I'm a drag performer, and her eyes popped open hugely, like, I would have never thought that of you.
yeah.
And I was like, so you have to be like a certain type to? No.
Maybe,
Anyone can do it, really.
yeah, but maybe,
But even that,
Yeah.
it's very. She was very accepted and actually very interested in what I do. So, not in that way related to what we're talking about, but the whole point of view of that everything is stereotyped.
yeah, but then people can change if you work
Yeah.
actively, and this sounds maybe like a person who can work actively against stereotypes. Sometimes
Yes.
it does work. It's not like it never works. It only happens that sometimes it doesn't work, and people can internalize that feeling too. Like, oh yeah, I am not like that. I'm different. I'm not part of that community. I'm not part of the
Yes.
people that go to pride events, or yeah. I find that very painful, because we all experience the same kind of pains and this acceptance bit, and especially conditional acceptance. I know it's very widespread, and stuff like that nobody else can understand. Nobody else.
I think so, and I mean, of course, there's conditional acceptance for other people as well, like when you have a certain ethnic background or stuff like that. But I think, especially in the queer community, it's a very, very big problem, because it comes in so many degrees and in so many small ways, which are actually microaggressions, and
Yeah.
are often, even by the person experiencing it, not picked up as such.
Yeah. Another example, I guess, is people that are single or don't even want a partner,
Or asexual, aromantic.
asexual,
Yeah.
aromantic, and there's all sorts of psychologization. Is that a word? People.
Well, it is now.
Psychologization. You know, people look at it and they try to judge. They think, oh, there's something mentally wrong with this person because it's single, and then like, I can mostly only speak for white gay males, but that's what I hear. And I've been in a relationship for quite some time now, but I know there's a lot of singles out there, and the typical straight couple that looks at that and it's like, it's not healthy to be alone. It's not healthy because I think it's not healthy. And like, okay, first let's look at the statistics. It's only like 1 to 2, 3, 4% of the people maybe that would be an eligible partner even. So I said like, okay, look around you. How many people do you find attractive for a relationship, and divide that by 100? And then you also have to like be sexually fit for each other, and that's another thing that we don't talk about. And I don't know how we got from one subject to another, but this is what happens.
There are so many.
This is what happens when you talk to Lolo bottoms, I guess.
Hi, my fault.
So and that's another thing that bothers me, and it also borders on conditional acceptance. Like, oh, you have to have like a perfect relationship when you're past a certain age, otherwise we won't accept your gayness. You're mentally ill. Even if I throw the statistics on table, it's like they still do not get it.
And I think that's, you mentioned like actually explaining things to people, and that's where I want to get to the following thing, which I think is very important and very interesting for our viewers as well, is to talk about how to deal with conditional acceptance, because there's tons of examples, and I think we could go on and on for hours and hours, but I think that would kind of turn the conversation kind of depressing. Is there are ways to deal with it, and not only for yourself, but also, like you said, there are people who are actually open to change and to learn.
Yeah, I'm not really good with like changing a person subtly, but maybe others have. So if you have any suggestions, I have a very extreme example of myself, which happened a few months back. There was somebody, we went out to dinner for a birthday, and this person was paying for everything, and it was their birthday, and then there was a family member with us, and he's like, oh, let's go out for drinks. It's what the family member suggested, and then the birthday person said, yes, let's go to a gay bar. Well, the reaction that came out of the brother was like, it was totally bizarre. It's 2024. He's like, no, I will not go to the gay bar, or something like that. And it's like out in the street, and I was like, okay, calm down. It's very normal. What do you think happens there? This is your brother. He's out and proud, and accept him for who he is, and be proud of this coming out. And what do you think happens in a queer bar, a gay bar? What do you think happens there? People have a beer. It's just like what happens in every other bar. And so, and I tried to turn that conversation around a little bit, like, this is a person who likes expensive clothes, and I was like, this is very an evil way of doing it. Maybe what I did, I was like, but I was like, what is your?
You were angry about it, and you responded emotionally, but that isn't always wrong.
Yeah, so I don't. It's like, oh, you hate to be in a place that is run by the queers, where there's queers, you're surrounded by queers, and I was like, look at your clothes. Most of your clothes are designed by gays probably, and women, and queers, because we're absolutely fashionable.
Look how fabulous we are.
I know. And this was, it was that moment that I really hurt this person, because he was like, oh my God, I am wearing something gay.
He all but took his clothes off right at the spot.
I was complaining. I was like taken aback a little bit, and I was like, okay, what did I do? What did I do to the mind of this person? And I don't know. I didn't mean it like that. It was. I meant it completely harmless, because I don't see the harm in.
Of course. Plus, you were hurt in that moment. Because that's what people don't realize. It's not just something you blurt out when you say, I don't want to be associated with that, because you don't say, I don't want to be associated with that. You say, I don't want to be associated with who you are.
Yes. The very essence of the being.
And that's a thing where I will also always make a difference in. If people don't like the fact that I do drag, that's perfectly valid. I mean, not everyone likes the ballet.
Yes.
You can be nice about it though. Like you don't call it disgusting. Stuff like that. It's subtleties.
That's disrespectful.
But the moment you say, well, I don't accept the fact you're trans, you're talking about my core being. Like, if you're talking about my transness, you're talking about who I am as a person. Whereas if you have an opinion about me doing drag, you talk about my job and what I do. Of course I'm proud of that. Of course I love what I do, but that doesn't hit the same way.
Yeah.
And that's also something that I explain to people. Like, okay, so here's the thing, you don't have to like what I do. It's perfectly fine. And also, at the end of this conversation, but not this one per se, but in general, we don't have to leave this conversation agreeing with each other. It's perfectly fine to find something difficult, but I think it is very helpful to do talk about these things and to do actually express like what you are saying is hurting me, and this is why. And that's a different approach. Whereas can you explain why this is, or even if can I make a suggestion? I think what's going on in your head with this is so and so, but please correct me if I'm wrong, and have a conversation like that. And I think a lot of people don't realize how important those direct personal conversations are, and that is in fact a form of activism, and sometimes even a more important one than the ones where we band together, demonstrate, go on the barricades. I mean, I do that too, but that's to make a bigger statement, a societal thing. But I think there's a lot of gain to get in personal conversations.
Yeah, I think so too. So going back to the lady neighbor about the handbags, it's like what I should have said is like something in like, it's okay for you to wear what you want. It's okay for me to wear what I want, and nobody will have like say in that but me. I will wear what I want. Yeah.
And even add, you don't have to like it.
No. Yeah.
But let me be.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like the same thing is there's a lot of situations where people have issues with same-sex partners. But on the other hand, have you ever thought about the fact that even if that person were straight, you might not like their pick-in partners anyways?
Yeah.
And there's so many similarities there that people just walk over and don't stop to think about. And those are small things you can plant with people to have them think about something. It doesn't mean they will change their mind, but there is a chance. And it really helps in such cases to not get angry. Now this is really hard. I've had a lot of practice. I mean, I've been a bartender for a long time. I hosted transgender meetups in a bar where people would come up with all kinds of questions, not only about themselves, but also to seek help. For instance, like, so my neighbor kid confided in me and is trans and their parents are not accepting, what should I do? But also people who were just curious, which is completely fine, but like bombarded me with all sorts of questions. And my tactic always is, if something is rude to ask or can be seen as hurtful, I will tell you, and after that I will still answer your question, because I think it's okay to be curious, but ask it in the right setting and to the right person, because I'd rather have people ask me, who chose to be open and out and proud and sometimes very, very loud, to come to with questions like these, but also to make sure that they will not be asking that young person that just came out, or that person who is insecure about themselves, those same questions. But don't just say this can be perceived as hurtful, or what you're asking is very rude. Explain why. Because in their mind it's just you're different than what I know, and I have a right to know. That's how people think. That's how people think about everything and anything. And that's a thing I learned. But the moment you, for instance, turn it around, like the first question every trans person gets is, have you had the surgery yet? Now I can give a really long story about whatever all that's wrong with that question. For instance, there is no one single surgery to start with. But to get back to the point I was making, is what I usually say is, how would you feel if I ask what's in your pants, and if you were born with the same genitals that you have now? And sometimes people say, well, I wouldn't mind. Some people are just open like that. But a lot of people are like, oh, I never really considered that.
Yeah.
That's actually the reaction you get most, because they don't realize what they're asking. They're curious about your changes, but they don't, and that's what they want to know, and they want to know, like, how does it work and stuff like that, and they perceive it from that perspective. But what the person who gets asked a question like that hears is, what's in your pants?
Yes, but maybe the first, correct me if I'm wrong, the first step is recognizing that you're hurt, maybe. I never fully recognized myself as, oh, maybe by what he did or said, that family member we were talking about earlier, was I hurt? Probably, but I didn't recognize it, because you become insensitive to this kind of stuff. And the first thing in my thought is like, okay, you're not intelligent enough to hurt me, or you are not I just don't see this as a person anymore, which is kind of wrong. And then
that's what happens in your anger, without you
Yes.
realizing at that moment, I am angry because I am hurt.
And even next step is like, let me hurt you.
Yes.
Let me.
Because-
You can hurt me, but let me hurt you, because I've had this like for years and years on end, and how dare you talk to me like that? That's my
and
first.
it's something that's been growing inside you, and that person has nothing to do with that part. And hurt people, and that's because so many reasons. But especially, like you said, it's so important to recognize for yourself, like, I am hurt in this moment. Like with the example I gave, that's not hurtful for me anymore. But that's why I explained why it can be hurtful for other people.
Yes, it might have hurt me in the past, but it doesn't hurt me now.
Yes.
But be careful with these kind of questions, you know.
Yeah, and I also always then explain that I have very thick skin, and I voluntarily choose to be open. And I always use both of these words to put an emphasis on this. You are allowed to ask me because I allow you.
Yes.
No one has an obligation to explain anything about themselves, ever.
I think I actually remembered one of the first times that you did that, and I love that kind of personal approach, this micro approach. So when I first saw that, I immediately jumped onto the chat to ask questions and to just look at what other people are asking, just to learn about the situation. But not a lot of people have room for that, of course. But I'm glad that you do. And this is another example that we're even sitting here right now.
Talking to, but I think that this also helps us as people, as single persons, heal. But conversations like these in general can help our community heal as well,
Yes.
and understand why these things are so important, and figure out together what we can do about it, how we can solve it, and not only how we can solve the part where the other person is hurting or where we're trying to educate people, but also how, and most importantly, how we can heal ourselves, how we can deal with these microaggressions without trusting the other person to turn it into a positive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the more difficult question.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like how do you deal with people who are in your life? Because it's not always possible to, like, people say, well, if someone doesn't fully accept me, they're not welcome in my life anymore. But that's sometimes more easy said than done. So then what? And that's something I haven't figured out yet either.
No, it's hard. But if you react to aggression with another aggression, it's like this can become like a cycle, because
Yes.
the example that we were talking about earlier, this comes back to me. This person saw me drunk one time. Only one time. You saw me drunk many times, of course.
Yeah, but we've known each other since forever.
No, I'm not drunk. Alcohol's bad for you kids. But and now that is used as, oh, this person was very drunk that night when this was said to me, and I was like, no, I only like one wine. That doesn't make me drunk anymore. So that aggression came from inside of me while I was like just fully conscious.
Yeah.
And I did that to hurt another person, and that's
Yeah, and
quite bad.
I think people often don't realize about others, but also about themselves, why they respond in a certain way. And I think that's really good that you went back to that, because I think that's where the key is.
Yeah.
Recognizing your own emotions in it, allowing yourself to feel those emotions.
Well,
And if you know, and if you try to have that conversation and you know that it's not going anywhere, and you still have to have these people in your life, stay away from certain subjects. Never compromise who you are. Stay absolutely your authentic self. And if you get commented on it, know that it is their shortcoming or their way of not agreeing with you. Because I see that as a shortcoming, if I'm honest about that. I think everyone should be able to be themselves and express themselves in whatever way they want. But that also means that the other person is allowed to disagree with that. And even if that hurts me.
Yeah, but that's where here we get to the core of what this is about. It's disagreeing with who you are, but that person has nothing to do with who you are, and that's
No, and that's it. And I know who I am.
Yeah.
And as long as I am happy with who I am and I am proud of who I am, what does it matter what anyone else has to say about that?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it stops hurting, but it means that it hurts less, and that I can rationalize it, and that I can deal with it, and that I don't let it have any influence on my mood and on my rest of my day. And it used to be like that.
Hey,
It used to eat me up inside so badly. I used to have, there are people in my life which I have had subjects that are very near and dear to my heart, like my transition, stuff like that. Hadn't talked with them about it for over 6 years because I was afraid to be hit with rejection. And as it turned out, this person falls under the category what we're talking about and conditionally accepts me, but doesn't understand why that is not enough for me. And even though that hurts me, I also found out that it hurts them, uh, that my life has changed so much because they had this picture in their minds
Yeah.
about who I was and who I was supposed to be, and that is no longer so. And they have trouble to see me for who I am now. But they do say, well, even though I don't agree with your job and what you do, and I have trouble seeing you as you say you are, I do love you, and I am glad that you are happy, and I do hope you get I wish you all the success in what you do, and even though it feels incomplete for me, for them, it's also giving and taking a little, and it would be. I mean, of course, I hope that at some point they will change their mind and get on board with everything, but that's idle hope, and that's not going to happen. And that is the moment I realized and decided that, okay, they are doing their best. We sat down, we had a conversation, we did not shout, there were a few tears, but we listened to each other, we explained our points of view, and we ended the conversation still disagreeing, but understanding a little bit more where we were both coming from and allowing ourselves to be more open with each other about that. And I think that also helps a lot, because you don't bottle up everything when you are always careful and when you're always treading on eggshells. Like, I don't want to say the wrong thing, I don't want to perceive as such, I don't want to sit down, talk to each other, and realize that it's okay to disagree. And even if that's not what you want, we don't always get what we want, and people are not the same.
True enough. Yeah. I don't disagree. Only it's hard to find like the right time to sit down with somebody because everybody's going through their own shit, I guess, and it's hard to find the time to say like, okay, what happened a few weeks back, or remember when you said that. It's maybe for me as a very explosive person, when I obviously when somebody says stuff to me to even try and hurt me, then I lash out. So that's the kind of person I am, and what I should do is like take a few steps back and return to it another time. It will never happen on that same day for me, I guess, because I can't do that. I cannot like de-escalate myself.
No, but that's also a really good thing to know about yourself. And I think I see a lot happening with you right now. I think there's a lot falling into place, but also a lot of realizations. Yes, I think it's a really good thing, and it's also okay. And I want to say that to all of you and to you. It is okay if stuff like this hurts you and upsets you, and it's hard to swallow, and it's something that you have to think about and come back to, and because it takes time. It takes time to get there, and I've been doing things this way for a really, really long time, and having these small conversations and micro activism, stuff like that. But even for me, sitting down with that person I love so dearly, which I knew that we clashed on things that are so important and near to my core, took me 6 years.
Yes. So it doesn't have to happen immediate.
It doesn't have to happen today, and it doesn't even have to happen tomorrow. If you think it's worth it to have that sit down with that person, also schedule it in advance. Tell them what you want to discuss, what you want to talk about.
Yes.
Even give them some time to think about it. Like, do you also want to sit down with me to have this conversation? You can think about it. I'll call you back in a week so we can make an appointment or not. Like, put it a little like that. It's so much give and take there. And also keep in mind, you're not just doing that for the relationship between you at that moment, or to help the other. You're doing that to help yourself. I so much needed that conversation.
Yes.
And for so long, I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready to hear, like, I don't see you as you see yourself. I wasn't ready to hear that. But even in that conversation, I said some really stupid things. And
you say stupid shit all the time.
But I blamed the other person, and I said, well, but I tried to get us together. Yeah, in 6 years, maybe I asked 2 times. Like, that's not really putting in the effort, but for me it felt like that because I asked at some points. So, and there's this it's really easy to stick to your emotions about that and to react from a hurt place, because negative emotions can be so overwhelming and so strong, and positive emotions, even if like literally every person around you in the entire world says you're frigging awesome, but that one person who you care about so much does not agree, it still hurts, and it still counts tenfold or 100-fold.
Yeah.
Or even if you see someone you love get hurt by people around them. And I think that's the next level thing with the conditional acceptance.
Yes,
because it's a different story when it happens to yourself.
Yeah, so my earlier example was actually not really happening to me, but I felt it because it was like, okay, you guys are the gays, but you don't belong to that community. You don't belong in a gay bar. You don't belong in Pride. And it's just like, that's what hurt me, I guess. Yeah. That is what hurt me, because yes, we are those people. We all are those people. And
yes. Yeah. And that's what I admire so greatly about you, because people obviously don't know that, but we've known each other for, I think, like
almost 20 years, I guess.
Over 20 years.
Yes, if you count online contacts.
Yeah. If we count online contact, we've known each other for like 23 years or something. I think it's about 20 years ago that we actually met in real life for the first time. So Rutger knows me from before my transition, and we lost touch for a while at some point, and we ran into each other, and I'm very open about a lot of things, and people always think that because I can be such a loudmouth and I have very little shame, that I'm also very confident about everything, but that's not the case. And especially when it's about running into people that I know from before my transition and haven't seen in a long time. But I was so happy that I spotted Rutger, that I called out his name, and before I could even stop and think about it, I'm so happy I did, because Rutger turned around, saw me, immediately recognized me, even though we hadn't seen each other in years, and I was like at a pretty decent point in my transition by then. And
you called me by my last name too. That's what I remember.
Oh, probably.
I actually have an audio filter or noise cancelling on, so can't hear anybody. But I
shouted so loud. I was so happy that I saw you. But what I was learning to get to it in the beginning, we had a lot of conversations about stuff like this, but more the personal aspect of everything. Like, you asked me a lot about my transition, and not in the curious way that we were talking earlier about, but like things that I run into in the community, without outside of the community, stuff like that. But you are always so invested in the people you care about. Like, sometimes you can even get like angrier than I could get if someone treats me wrong, and you get hurt tenfold when you see that people hurt someone you love, and I think that's beautiful, and I wanted to say that on camera.
You think it's beautiful that I hurt people because I see them hurt other people?
No, not the action on it, but that You are so invested in the people you care about.
Yes.
And I think that's also the reason that you're here today. And that makes it like in the moment you might be very impulsive, to put it nicer than explosive, like you said yourself. You can be very impulsive, but you're also someone who like sees what's happening around them and like, okay, this might not be my personal battle for a lot of things. Of course, like we said, everyone deals with stuff like this, but you see other people running into the conditional acceptance more and more often, and you want to do something about it.
Yeah, but
If possible, and I think that's important too, like that we listen to each other and we
Yes.
keep an eye on each other.
But what I learned from this conversation is that you cannot always fight somebody else's battle. I guess you can't always change certain people's views, and you actually do the same, but in a different way.
Yeah.
You know. So, and I think a
Absolutely.
conversation is more efficient than just lashing out. Sometimes
But
maybe
it does sometimes make you feel better.
it does.
It's not the right way to approach things, people. Even though it can make you feel better.
I don't know, but yeah, it's what the point is. It does not come from a place of love,
Yeah.
and some things I guess need to come from a place of love, because this anger comes from a certain thing that we've acquired throughout our lives and that we're proud of, and yeah, so you want that other person, I guess, to be proud of you too, but it doesn't always happen that way.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very, very
And
true.
you also pick your battles. If you
Oh,
know
definitely.
it's a lost cause, you should just leave it alone. So,
Yeah. And sometimes literally walk away.
Yeah.
'Cause that's fine. You don't have to save the world on your own.
And also, it's psychologically better for you to go do something else,
Yes.
or do nothing, or do something else, because thinking about it, acting upon it, it might only lead to more frustration because it's active in your mind, and
You spend so much
Yes.
energy on basically a lost cause, to say it the
Well,
way it is.
there's
Let's call
yeah.
it what it is.
And there's
Sometimes the battle is lost before it started.
yeah.
And it's not always easy to recognize that, but the moment you realize this is going nowhere, try to extract yourself from the conversation or the situation as fast as possible, because you're only you're hurting yourself by continuing at that moment.
Yes. And sometimes you make yourself look like a fool.
So I think we could go on forever.
Yes, we should have our own talk show. That's
Oh,
this
most
much is-
definitely,
yeah.
most definitely. Well, if you want that, you can respond that, because we might do something with that. You never know. I know you love the camera.
Yeah, I love it.
Maybe we could start a podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know. Actually, there is someone who wants to start a podcast with me and who has been wanting that for years. So you never know where things might go. And this series might get follow-ups as well. We'll see. But for now, I really want to thank you for joining me. I think we had a wonderful conversation. It was very intense at points. It was emotional at points.
Very,
We
yeah.
also had quite a few good laughs, luckily.
Of course, you know us. It's
Yeah.
it's intense, and you know Lolo Bottoms. Intense but emotional. Yeah, so thank you for the conversation. Thank you so much for having me as a guest, and yeah, let's
You're very, very welcome. I also do have a small token of appreciation for you that fits right in with this series. It's a pin.
That is just awesome. That makes me so happy.
It's a pride pin connecting the rainbow flag and the trans pride flag together.
It's great. Thank you. I will wear that. Thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you once again. And as for you, this was part 2 of We Don't Talk About. This was, of course, as you know by now, We Don't Talk About Conditional Acceptance.
Our conversations premiere every Tuesday during Pride Month at 8 p.m. Central European Time with a live chat. So make sure to subscribe, turn on the notifications, and let's talk.
And as always, until next time. Bye.
Bye.